Greece and Turkey are NATO allies. Their militaries belong to the same alliance. They sit on the same southeastern edge of Europe. They trade with each other. They need each other. And yet, for decades, they have argued over islands, airspace, sea rights, and Cyprus. Sometimes the relationship warms. Sometimes it nearly freezes. But the underlying question keeps coming back. How can two allies still carry a rivalry this deep? That is the missing context. And the answer is not simply ancient hatred. It is what happened when an empire collapsed. Nationalism redrew the map. People were forced to move, and a narrow sea became a question of sovereignty and security. Look at the Aegean. On a tourist map, it looks beautiful. Islands, coastlines, ports, ferries. But on a strategic map, the same geography looks very different. Greek islands sit close to the Turkish mainland. Airspace, territorial waters, continental shelves, and military deployments begin to overlap in ways that are hard to explain quickly. Then add Cyprus. Add the memory of war. Add the memory of people leaving homes they had known for generations. And suddenly, the question is not why Greece and Turkey disagree. The question is why the disagreements survived, even after they became allies. To understand that, you have to go back before Greece and Turkey were modern states. For centuries, much of the Greek-speaking world lived inside the Ottoman Empire. That does not mean Greeks and Turks were the same. It means the world they lived in was not organized like a modern national map. Cities could be mixed. Villages could be layered. Religion, language, class, trade, and imperial administration did not always line up cleanly. An Orthodox Christian community might speak Greek. A Muslim community might speak Turkish, Albanian, Greek, or another language. Ports connected people who later national stories would try to separate. That is important because modern nationalism asks a hard question. Where does the nation begin and where does it end? For Greeks, the 19th century became a struggle to create and expand a national state after centuries of Ottoman rule. Greek independence created a kingdom, but it did not include every community that many Greeks considered part of the Greek nation. That is where the megali idea mattered. The idea was not just independence. It imagined a larger Greek national future connected to Greek-speaking and Orthodox communities still outside the state. For many Greeks, this was a story of liberation and national completion. But from the perspective of the Ottoman state and later Turkish nationalists, it could look like expansion into lands they considered vital to their own survival. That is the first important split. The same movement could be remembered as national liberation by one side and territorial threat by the other. Then World War I broke the Ottoman Empire. The defeated empire faced a proposed settlement at Sèvres that would have carved up much of what remained. Greek forces landed in western Anatolia. For Greek leaders, this was tied to protecting and uniting Greek communities in western Anatolia. For Turkish nationalists, it became proof that foreign powers and Greece were trying to partition the Turkish homeland. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk and the Turkish nationalist movement fought back. The Greco-Turkish War became one of the founding traumas of the modern relationship. For Turkey, the nationalist victory was a war of independence. It saved the future Turkish Republic from foreign occupation and dismemberment. For Greece, the defeat became the Asia Minor catastrophe. Many Greek Orthodox communities that had lived across Anatolia for generations fled or were expelled. Smyrna, now Izmir, burned in 1922. The fire, the deaths, and the mass flight became one of the most painful memories in modern Greek history. In Greek memory, this was part of a wider catastrophe that included the genocide of Ottoman Greeks, including Pontic Greeks along the Black Sea coast and other Asia Minor or Anatolian Greek communities. That genocide framing is recognized by the Greek state, Cyprus, several other parliaments, and the International Association of Genocide Scholars, which has referred to Pontian and Anatolian Greeks. Turkey rejects that characterization, so the wording matters. But the broad result is clear. The war did not just change borders. It changed what each side thought the other was capable of. Then came Lausanne. The Treaty of Lausanne in 1923 replaced the earlier settlement at Sèvres and helped establish the international framework for modern Turkey. It also shaped the relationship with Greece. But treaties can settle borders without settling memory. And Lausanne was tied to one of the most dramatic social engineering projects of the 20th century, the compulsory population exchange between Greece and Turkey. This is the human center of the story. The exchange was not organized by a modern DNA test or a simple language rule. It was mainly religious. Greek Orthodox nationals of Turkey were generally sent to Greece. Muslim nationals of Greece were generally sent to Turkey. There were exceptions, including Greeks in Constantinople, now Istanbul, and Muslims in Western Thrace. But for huge numbers of people, the rule was brutal in its simplicity. The new states wanted clearer national populations. The people had complicated lives. Some spoke the wrong language for the country they were sent to. Some had never seen the place that was now supposed to be their national home. Some left houses, graves, churches, mosques, fields, workshops, and neighbors behind. The new borders did not just move across land. They moved through people's homes. In one sense, the exchange reduced a source of future conflict between the two states. In another sense, it gave both societies a powerful memory of loss. For Greeks, refugees from Asia Minor and Pontus became a living reminder of catastrophe. For Turks, the birth of the Republic became tied to survival after occupation, collapse, and partition. That is why this rivalry cannot be understood only by looking at today's map. The map itself was created through trauma, but even after the mainland border became clearer, the Greek-Turkish question did not disappear. It moved. One place it moved was Cyprus. Cyprus had a Greek Cypriot majority and a Turkish Cypriot minority. It was ruled by Britain before independence. Many Greek Cypriots supported Enosis, union with Greece. Many Turkish Cypriots feared that union with Greece would turn them into an insecure minority. Cyprus became independent in 1960, but the constitutional balance did not hold. Intercommunal violence in the 1960s deepened fear and separation. Then, in 1974, a coup backed by the Greek military junta tried to change the island's political future. Turkey launched a military operation. Turkish official language often describes this as an intervention under guarantor rights. Greek and Cypriot official sources usually describe it as an invasion and occupation. Whatever term is used, the result was a divided island. The Republic of Cyprus is internationally recognized and is now in the European Union. The northern part is controlled by a Turkish Cypriot administration recognized only by Turkey. In Greek and Greek Cypriot official narratives, Cyprus is a story of invasion, displacement, and occupation. In Turkish and many Turkish Cypriot narratives, it is a story of protection after years of insecurity and violence. Again, the same event sits inside two national memories. And because Cyprus is still divided, the memory is not safely in the past. It remains a live diplomatic problem. Then there is the Aegean. This is where geography itself becomes political. In most places, sea separates neighbors. In the Aegean, the sea is crowded. Greek islands sit close to the Turkish coast. That creates questions that sound technical, but feel existential to the countries involved. How far do territorial waters extend? How much maritime space can an island generate? Who controls the continental shelf? Where does airspace begin and end? Which islands can be militarized? Are some islets clearly Greek, clearly Turkish, or disputed? To an outside viewer, this can sound like legal fine print. To Athens, it can sound like sovereignty and the defense of Greek territory. To Ankara, it can sound like being boxed in by islands just off its coast. That is why a small island or islet can become much bigger than its size. It can represent a principle. If one side accepts the other side's view in one place, it may fear losing leverage everywhere else. So the Aegean is not just water. It is a field of claims, memories, security fears, and legal arguments layered over one another. This is also where the modern relevance comes in. Greece and Turkey are not always at peak tension. After the 2023 earthquakes, diplomacy warmed. High-level meetings resumed. Some airspace tensions fell sharply compared with earlier years. But the deeper disputes did not vanish. European reporting still points to unresolved questions over continental shelves, exclusive economic zones, maritime planning, the status of eastern Aegean islands and Cyprus. At the same time, NATO needs both countries. Turkey controls a crucial position between the Black Sea, the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and Europe. Greece anchors the alliance's southeastern flank from the other side. Both matter to migration, energy, Ukraine, the Eastern Mediterranean, and wider European security. That is the paradox. NATO can put Greece and Turkey in the same alliance. It can create channels, meetings, and incentives not to escalate. But NATO cannot rewrite the memories of 1922. It cannot undo the population exchange. It cannot settle Cyprus by itself. It cannot make the Aegean less crowded. And it cannot make each side see sovereignty, security, and history in the same way. So why do Greece and Turkey still disagree? Not because they are doomed to be enemies, and not because nothing has changed. They cooperate. They trade. They talk. They stand inside the same alliance. But modern Greece and modern Turkey emerge from the same imperial collapse with competing national projects, painful memories, and a geography that keeps turning history into policy. The rivalry survives because the settlement that created clearer states did not create a shared story. For Greece, many disputes are about sovereignty, memory, and protection against pressure. For Turkey, many disputes are about security, equality, and resisting arrangements it sees as unfair or imposed. Between them is the Aegean. Beside them is Cyprus. Behind them is a century of memory. That is why two NATO allies can still disagree so deeply. They are not only arguing about lines on a map. They are arguing about what the map was supposed to settle. If you like my content, please like and follow for more.